All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this week's Tuning In podcast. We have Caden Beatty at Rollin Media on Instagram. We have Gigawatt James as well as our guest this week. We're here to talk about some pretty interesting mechanic stories, some just all around good car related topics. And so James, question for you.
What's the answer? Oh, what's the question?
So you at one point were a licensed mechanic.
I was. I used to do that. Now I'm an electrician because, why not?
You have a brain.
I don't like being cold, and yet I'm still cold.
The money's a lot better in your trade for sure.
It is.
Yeah.
But it was turning my, working for a dealership was turning my hobby into my deepest, darkest regrets. So I went with, I can have a good hobby and still have some money left over to live.
That's exactly true. So what are some interesting dealership stories that you have?
Oh, man. Do you want ones that I caused or ones that I experienced?
A little bit of both.
Well, we could go. I worked for 2 dealerships and a custom car shop in my period of time. The custom car shop was by far the best job ever. Just boss was a moron. I won't mention which shop because that's not fair. But it doesn't exist anymore, so that's fine. But when I worked for General Motors, I was a co-op kid there and I was an apprentice there. And I remember one day, this is everyone's biggest fear. You leave your car, your beautiful brand new car at the shop, and you see the 17-year-old kid take off with it. And that happened because service advisor wrote up a Z06, had a noise at 174 kilometers an hour. And he goes, I only want the most senior tech driving my car. I only blah, 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 this and that. Okay. James, please come up to the service desk. And I come up in my stupid coverall. I had a big afro at the time. I was like 130 pounds soaking wet. And I'm like, what's up? And like, this car has a shake at 175. Thanks. Hop in a brand new Z06. And as I drive by the service window, there's the guy plastered against the glass. Like, and if you've ever been to Boyer, yes. The highway's right behind the dealership.
Yeah.
Nah, it's fine. And this guy's face just like white as a ghost. Absolutely amazing.
Oh, man. How did that go?
It went well. I mean, he got his car back. His vibration was nothing too serious, but,
What was the cause?
I think it was just an out-of-balance wheel, and he was doing 174 kilometers an hour, and we strongly suggest that you probably shouldn't do that.
It's not recommended to drive at those speeds.
Yes, sir, we don't recommend 170 just because the car can do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a good time. Like, I mean, the wash bay with Saturdays are always interesting at dealerships.
And why is that?
We get a Buick Rendezvous in, and it's covered in glitter on the inside. Like, just disgusting.
Covered in
glitter.
Glitter.
Oh, like the herpes of the craft world. Oh. Because once it gets on you, it's never getting off.
Oh, man. Anything else interesting with this Buick?
In the center console these seats are stained, and it was a disgusting vehicle. And in the center console was a device, and this lady was a nurse. So we'll say it's a healthcare device to relieve stress. It's very, very long, very pink.
And what kind of shape?
I was in good shape, actually, but it was. It looked like a hot
device in the
dog.
car.
Are you talking about the shape of the object, or like what type of condition it was in? Though
condition, it was good. Shape of the object was very hot dog without the bun.
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
You're feeling the vibe.
So
naturally, like any adult would, picked it up out of the car with some gloves on. Ran it to the service desk and slammed it down on the service counter. And that went over really well. We all had a good laugh about that. And then we had to put it back so that she didn't realize that we touched it. Because, that's nothing more embarrassing than picking your car up. And
do you think she left it there on purpose?
That's a question that haunts me to this very day. I don't know the answer. I don't know if I want to know the answer. I like the mystery.
Oh, man, that's quite hilarious. Anything else that you realized during your tenure at the dealership?
Not all dealerships are out to scam you. A lot of them are, but not all of them.
Most of them.
And I do feel for dealership mechanics. That's like, it's like the really soft part of the end of it is I feel for them sometimes because book time is a terrible thing.
Exactly.
When these guys are very skilled. They've got a lot of money tied up in tools, and to be told that it's 0.3 of an hour to do a full brake job on like a Toyota Previa, Nope. Maybe when it was brand new. But I've seen what happened in Ontario. If they put enough salt down that we could make our own ocean, those bolts aren't coming out. That's not 0.3 of an hour.
Yeah, they definitely feel it the most.
Oh, yeah. And so I feel for those guys. Like, I mean, there's also guys out there. I mean, when I worked for Toyota, we did a side-by-side one night. The T1000, the Tacomas, they have a frame recall.
Yes.
So they rust out. So Jerry, who called me Dr. James, because I knew how to diagnose the old cars, he would go side by side and do two at the same time because they paid like 17 hours. So take the bodies off the frames, take everything off, swap the frames out side by side on a Saturday night, stay late, and you make almost a week's pay in one evening, and it was just bolting stuff back together. When Toyota finds out that you can do that, they cut the time down because now someone can do it faster, and then you lose money.
Exactly,
and that's not fair.
Not fair at all.
No,
especially the way the system's set up with the whole piecework thought process. It definitely screws the customer too. And it screws the tech. It
does. Yeah. It hurts. And it's bad because it's not a bad industry. And working on cars is not a bad thing. And it can be very passionate. And you can have people who are very passionate about working on cars. But stuff like that rips it out of you. It just washes it away.
Okay, so question for you. If you had a family member that was down, just say, a couple hours from home, and they called you and they said, James, I'm having car problems. Should I take my car to the dealership or a private shop?
I'd say, which one are you closer to? But if it was personal for me, depends on how bad the thing is. If it's just a tire, like a flat, go to the local dealership, get it patched up. The flat rate time is fine. They're going to get the apprentice to do it anyway. What does it matter? But like if it's near like our buddy Eric's shop, or if it's here or something like that, I'll say go there. They're going to treat you well. Even if the cost is, say, maybe $10 more, you're getting a better thing. You're making a connection. I trust them. So that wheel's not falling off the car. Because, I mean, I even did that as an apprentice. Someone took the car off the lift before I said it was done. That wheel almost came off on the highway. I came back and I got charged with a wheel. Because the bolts had all rounded out. And that was a tech's daughter. But no one told me. I came back after lunch. I'm like, where'd the car go?
Oh, no, they released it.
Yeah.
Communication is so vital in a shop.
Exactly.
Well, when there's so many things going on, there's, at a dealership, up 10, 11 techs at a time, right? Similar to how we are at our shop. There's just so many different things going on. So communication between advisors and techs is so
crucial.
Important.
And especially when you think like it's different in, say, even our industries. Like, if something goes wrong, but I have a breaker off at work, like nothing's turning on. No one's going to get hurt as long as that breaker's off. Someone might get wet every once in a while, right? But this is a vehicle that can do 175 kilometers an hour on the highway. And if the wheel decides that it doesn't feel like this is the right fit for it in life anymore and decides to go a different way, that's a big problem.
It's a huge problem.
And that doesn't just impact your life as the driver. It impacts everyone else in the realm of that trajectory.
Yeah, anyone else who touched that vehicle.
And that's a life-ending, that could be a life-ending or at least a career-limiting move.
Exactly. And the thought for me is the pay for your average mechanic to what is associated with the job itself. If you're not passionate about becoming a mechanic and it's not something that you can, put up with all of the stuff that sort of the pressures and everything else in the trade, realistically, it's not worth it for you.
No.
Right? So.
And that was the exact, when I joined the Joint Apprenticeship Council to start my electrical apprenticeship, you have to do safety and orientation for the union. And I went in the first day, and I was in conflict with my license because it was going for a dual thing according to the College of Trades, because my license hadn't gone through their system yet. So they were saying I was doing 2 apprenticeships because I challenged for my license because I was pissed off at Toyota.
Yeah.
But so I got called aside. So when I got brought back in, the guy was like, what did you get called aside for? And I was like, oh, it's just a problem with my apprenticeships. It's not a big deal. I'm now in this. I used to be on the automotive side. I have my license. It's not a big deal. And he goes, oh, how much do you have in tools? And I was like, oh, around, I don't know, $7,000-8,000. I got a lot of stuff used. I had a used box, all this stuff, like gifts. Some of them was gifts for Christmas. And he goes, that guy there is bitching about the fact that the starter kit for an electrician for the tool list that you're supposed to have is like at max for the best of the best of the best tools, $400. And you could do 8 years worth of work with $400. And he's complaining. It's like, could you do 8 years of work?
At almost twice the wage, too.
Yeah, I was like,
twice the wage.
And I was like, I couldn't. I have a cup, like a $45 cup for GM Ecotech oil filters because you can't use anything else on them. Ecotechs
are my favorite.
They're great. They're the best motor ever.
It's best when they they come in with low coolant.
Yes. Cha-ching.
Oh man, I feel so bad too because I get a customer calling me and they say, "Oh, my Chevrolet Cruze, the coolant's low or the heat doesn't work."
Yep.
And I'm just like, yeah, yeah, get rid of it.
Looks like it's time to
And
sell.
then they get upset when I say, "Well, you probably don't want to keep this vehicle." After we bring it in, we inspect it, right, and then lo and behold, a couple weeks later, head gasket.
Yep. And it's like clockwork.
It's unfortunate.
It is because, like, if you remember, there was the Cobalt before?
The Cobalt, I think, was before the
Cobalt
Cruze.
ran bad longer than most cars ran.
I feel like GM knew, they're like, this car is going to run terrible.
Yeah.
So, let's kind of...
And they're not going to, the people who own these aren't going to fix them. So let's make it so they still run. But like your windows don't work. The key will fall out while it drives. Radio gets 2 stations, both of them country. Like,
very similar to a Dodge Neon.
it's very, Dodge Neons are amazing. Best car ever until they aren't.
Oh, I know. I know of a guy who said he's got one, and he said he can keep up with a Hellcat.
Oh, an SRT swap?
Yeah. I heard those things can be quite the weapon.
SRT swaps are scary.
Yeah, man.
And
But
especially when you see in like the little smiley face that is the first gen Dodge Neon, like, oh, hello.
yeah, man. Cool. I saw the car in person. He has, one different tire in the front here, one different tire in the front left, and he's got probably 3 different manufacturer tires on that vehicle. And he's like, yeah, man, I keep up with Hellcats.
Is that the?
Do they know
the
they're
green
racing?
one that's local?
That is in fact the local green.
The green one.
Yeah,
I've
you
seen
guys
that
know
guy.
of that car. And
Yeah.
then,
I know, and it's a
That's
coupe
pretty
too,
quick.
so it's unusual.
That's the guy who used to
Yeah.
have the PT Cruiser.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think he still has it.
the big horsepower PT Cruiser.
Oh yeah, the one with the hood.
burgundy one.
Yes, the one with the hood.
no hood.
That's just all you have to say. The PT Cruiser with the hood.
And the cone
we all
filter
know
sticking up.
it. Yep.
with the cone filter.
The real SRT.
Hey, those guys exist.
They do. Hey, the PT losers, they can run 10s.
They can, man. They hurt feelings for sure.
They do.
Yeah.
Oh, your feelings would be I used to think it was bad when I watched turbo caravans destroy like Corvettes and Camaros,
Yeah.
but getting beat by a purple PT Cruiser, I would just sell my car and take knitting up. Like that's it.
knitting?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'll just get into knitting really hard, just crocheting, macrame.
Any other hobby, but
no,
you took
that's
knitting?
knitting. I'm gonna be sitting down, 2 needles.
Sitting down at your local Taco Bell.
Yeah. What
just
happened, James?
crocheting.
Why do you look so sad? Oh, I got beat by a purple PT Cruiser. My Z28.
So then this begs the sort of next sort of few questions I want to ask you. You've been on quite a bit of adventures in your life, correct?
I have been on many adventures.
Yeah. Most memorable.
Most memorable adventure, probably the most recent one, like since the world shut down. That was when I took a 1967 Cadillac Coupe de Ville convertible from Kansas City, Maine to Las Vegas, Nevada, with a
yeah.
couple of really good friends. My friend Alan, who owns his own shop in Illinois, and he does some high end cars. We're talking like Gambella Porsches, like cocaine 80s, Mercedes Benz Konings, and all sorts. I think he's McLaren certified even. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure. He off-roads a Glenda wagon for fun. Like hard off-roads.
Oh, man.
So he's just that guy. And he'd sold this Cadillac to a customer in Vegas. So he talked to me and he's like, do you want to go on a road trip? You meet me in Maine and we'll drive across the country. It's like, cool. So it's Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas and freaking Cadillac across the country.
You guys experience anything interesting along your way?
We had the alternator fall off the motor in the mountains.
Yeah.
We did a snowstorm, so we had a blizzard whiteout conditions at 11,000 feet above sea level. So as you could surely imagine, a large cubic inch single carburetor V8 at 11,000 feet above sea level in the middle of winter on bias flat tires in the snow
Nice.
with convertible
Oh, man.
was a great time. But it actually was. It was fantastic. And Alan's a really good driver, so like I wasn't worried. But just super cool. And then I got to see a rainbow in the desert. We stood in 4 states at the same time.
That's
Because
pretty
there's a part
cool.
in Colorado where I think it's Colorado, Nevada, New Mexico, and Utah all touch.
Really?
So we got to stand there and hang out just at the edge of a rainstorm in the middle of the desert.
How welcoming was the car culture and atmosphere down there?
We didn't. So Vegas is huge. Like Nevada's awesome for car stuff.
Really?
Everywhere else, like we didn't stop anywhere relevant for cars along the way. It was more so just like a scenic thing. But like the places I've been for car shows, like I've been to H2O. Like it was almost a decade of H2O.
Or the real H2O.
Real H2O, just before it went to like absolute mayhem. Mark I Madness in the States with all the Mark I Rabbits and Jettas and stuff like that. It's probably the best show I've ever been to in my entire life. Like I would suggest that show for anyone ever. If you want to see what car
Madness?
community looks like, that's the show.
Just the fundamentals of
It's
true
just
community.
Even though people show up in like people are showing up in $500 rabbits that they glued together the night before, and then people are also showing up in like cars they've had since high school with ABA turbos and shaved bays and hand stitched Recaros and stuff. And between the two, if you saw the owners side by side, no one's walking around big nuts on them, pissing contest kind of thing. Everyone's just hanging out, camping.
I think that's a big part of the car culture these days. Is, the big nuts.
And it feels like it here is the pissing contests. It ruins the scene.
Yeah.
Because we all drive cars. They're not the best. Cars are a terrible hobby.
Especially up here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like it's 8 months of the year. It's too cold to drive a nice car. So you have to just park around. And then like to see stuff like that where we used to have that problem at shows before. People would cry about not getting trophies. I brought my car and I'm not getting a trophy.
Right.
Enough of that.
I'm just happy to be here.
That's what I'm like. Cool, my car made it.
Honestly, at Grand Bend this year, or Berlin Classic, I'm surprised that my BMW made it there without any issues, because shortly after, my water pump, my high pressure fuel pump, shortly after.
I made it. That's all that matters.
I made it there and I made it back.
But see, Berlin Classic's getting it has the vibe that we're all looking for, whereas like cars like you have a Mark III, and people are still so excited to see it. I mean, you're not to put your car down, but your car is a Mark III with wheels on it. It's not, not a $100,000 Gambella Porsche. It's not these guys with the stupid like penny floors and air ride. But people are still stopping and being like, holy smokes, what an awesome car!"
Yeah, like base model wheels.
That is the energy that is Berlin Classic.
And the same person will turn around and go, "Wow, that's a slant nose Porsche 930 turbo. Like, what a great car!" And then there's me who brought a Chevrolet Silverado, a Ford pickup truck, and a scooter. And still had a fantastic
the scooter's like the main page of Berlin this year. Like,
hey man, that's a nice
there's like
scooter.
8,000
so many people
shares of that video, I think.
Like, you did a burnout in that thing?
I did.
Yeah, you did.
Everything.
Right on the drag strip. Right on the drag strip.
You did everything. You did like drag pass, burnout,
yeah,
limbo.
I did the limbo. I rode up. I was like, "Hey, can I get in line for limbo?" He's like, "Sure."
I think I saw that too. Yeah,
it's a good time, and
that's priceless.
But that's the vibe I want to see at shows, because like it's a community. It's always been a community. If you wanted to go win a contest, that's a different story. Vagcraft used to be like that. Vagcraft got really heavy on the trophies. It brought out some big hitting cars. Like, very impressed with the cars that showed up at Vagcraft year after year after year. But people, they'd get sore.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Ego is a big thing in the car community. Yeah.
And there's a lot involved with that, and I get it. But it's unfortunate sometimes. It's cool to be proud of your things, but to be have pride to the point of ignorance it's hard.
Yeah, there has to be some moment where you just realize,
Yeah, we're in it together.
Yeah, exactly. We're in it together. We're in it for the good time. And I think the camping aspect of Berlin brings the community together so much more.
It does.
Yeah, because, you see the golf carts doing wheelies and stuff. And 2 a.m, you hear
some two-stepping.
Yeah, you hear two-stepping at 2 a.m. OPP comes up. This is 2 years ago. OPP comes up. Hey, you guys hear that two-stepping? Yeah, the guy's over there. OPP goes to the other side. Two-stepping starts again. And then it's just back and forth.
And it was nice too, because there's some older guys that show up to the show, which like even myself I brought the dogs and stuff, and they don't like the two-stepping as much, but you can get to the other side of the property and like you can pick out where you camp, and you can kind of leave the shenanigans over there. Or at least you can tell people, but if man, too much shenanigans, and they go, oh, okay, and then shenanigans over there somewhere.
Yeah. Oh, my bad, guy. I'll go over there.
They're actually pretty good about it. Yeah. So, and that's just this kind of thing. Whereas I know, especially like H2O, you went and told someone to stop two-stepping, they tell you to fuck off. It goes harder.
So tell me about the real H2OI in Atlantic City.
Oh, Atlantic City, I don't know nothing about that. I haven't been to that one yet. I only ever went to Ocean City.
Ocean City, that's where, yeah.
So they've relocated to, then H2OI, so I started going to H2OI in 2011.
Okay,
so I would have been just under the drinking age, so I was 20. And like that show, so it was a Volkswagen, it was a water-cooled Volkswagen specific only show. That was the point. It was actually nowhere near the strip where everyone hangs out. It was off in a field. It was supposed to only be air-cooled. Some European cars, all Volkswagen. That's what the H2O was, water-cooled cars. That's why it was H2O.
Yeah.
But what ended up happening is, of course, people grow out of it. People grow out of their water-cooled. You know, Mark IVs are really cool and Mark IIs are really cool until you can afford an S2000. And then you go buy an S2000. But you still want to hang out with your friend. That's the community aspect. My friend still drives a Mark I. And he says, still come, hang out at the hotel, just leave your car parked on the thing, and we'll go to the show together. So now you got this guy with a slammed S2000 hanging out with all these Mark IIIs. And then his buddy shows up in his NSX, and that guy shows up in his BMW, and then, like, it's a big thing. And then the pissing contest begins. Who's going to bring the cooler car? Who's going to make the after video this year?
But I feel like it's not maybe the cooler car anymore, because I heard a lot of the French guys that I met at the Canadian H2OI stating that they go down there with money for their tickets, and they know they're going to get a ticket and or arrested. That was a big thing.
Yeah, because once you get south of New York State, everything's legal for a fee. You want to run a red light? It's like $98. Like, you're gonna get your car at an impound, and then of course Ocean City alone has special rules they put in place specifically for their cruise weeks, because they do Hot Rod Week, Jeep Week, Cruising Week, Sunfest. Like, there's a bunch of Bike Week. Like, there's a bunch of other stuff that happens there, but we were the most rambunctious.
Of course.
So that's what they would do. They would put in minimum headlight height laws. Like, a stock Z06 Corvette doesn't meet their headlight law.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And it was an instant impound. So right then and there, you're like $1,000 in US. So and the problem, what I found was, it wasn't like, I mean, people showing out in the pissing contest, and people trying to two-step harder, and people trying to make the videos and blocking intersections and doing burnouts. And the one year that one guy did like a 230 mile an hour run in his Porsche at 2 o'clock in the morning down the whole strip, ran every red light, didn't care who was in the way. Like, it's just one of those things where it got out of hand. And then when the cops stepped it up, like, you couldn't show up. You couldn't show up in your car. I couldn't show up in my car. You couldn't show up in your car without getting a ticket. And if you're going for a weekend away, like, it's a vacation for a lot of us. That's a 12-hour drive. It's not like we'll go back to Delaware, that's an hour away, and, hang out at home. Boo-hoo, I'll go hang out at home and watch it on the internet. You drive 12 hours to have your car taken away? That's rough.
Oh, yeah.
And so it became to the point where we wanted people to behave, because the show, like, we got away with murder for years. We really did. I watched people tackle bike cops. I watched people do two-steps. I watched people do burnouts in the ocean. Like, just dumb stuff.
What was the most ridiculous thing you ever saw down at H2O?
The bike cop getting tackled.
Who tackled him and what happened?
Some guy ran out of the crowd. The bike cops were doing that. So what there is on 50, I think it's 56th Street, is the Tap House.
Yeah.
And Tap House was like where everybody, the big cars showed up, like all the Instagram famous cars, like just big money vehicles, really cool builds, nice guys. They were all drinking.
The SEMA cars, yeah.
Like the scene, just cool cars.
Yeah.
And we'd stand on the side of the road, and you're telling people at red lights, do a burnout. Did your mom buy that car? It's a really weird sounding LS. Like at every other vehicle, like all this stuff. And people would do it. Like they'd do their burnouts, they do their two steps, like cool shit. Like it was disruptive as hell, but it was fantastic.
Of course.
But then, the cops would be like, okay, like it's 1 o'clock in the morning. Let's calm down a bit. And, rambunctious drunk people get more rambunctious. So like I saw a guy climb a lamppost with an American flag as a cape, stuff like that. And then these 2 bike cops were just coming and freaking tackled. So this guy runs out of the crowd and tackles one of them, gets up and keeps running, like garage sales a bike cop. And this is a real police officer.
Oh, man.
So of course, like he takes off, and the way that Ocean City is all the streets are numbered. Everything on the even side backs onto the ocean. Everything else backs onto the bay. Oceanside is where all the hotels is. So this man goes down 53rd, runs, circles around the beach, back to 56 where we were staying, and he's back on the road. Well, I mean, it's not much for the cops to drive 3 blocks. So they catch him, and they have him on the ground, and we're in our hotel room at this point because we're like, wow, what an amazing thing we just saw. What a wild place to be. We're on our top balcony, we see this man handcuffed on the bottom, and we're like, me and a friend, we're like, I think he's resisting arrest. And the cop goes, I think you're right. And they just start beating the shit out of him.
Jeez.
And we just like,
that's rough.
Time to get back on the balcony.
The cops get back in. I think you're right.
I mean, you beat up a cop, they're going to beat you back.
Oh, man.
No body cam at that time.
That's pre-body cam time.
So
yeah.
but we The one year, if you look it up still, if you Google Officer Jonah Hill, it'll be half 21 Jump Street, half one of the police officers from H2O one year because he looked just like him, bike helmet and all. And they had to send him home because we made fun of him so much.
So
He just kept like, Officer Jonah Hill, look at this guy. People are trying to take pictures with him and stuff. They just were like, go home, man.
So the guy that got so the guy that did the tackling.
Yeah. Oh, he went.
Did he have a French accent?
No, he not.
Oh,
At least not that I know of.
No way.
He looked pretty American, and I don't feel like the Quebecers would tackle a bike cop unless you know
The
differently.
Quebecers sometimes do get fairly wild.
They're very passionate.
That's what it is. The French are a
They're very
passionate group
people.
of individuals. Yes.
They believe in things.
Yes, they do. And at H2OI Canada, I've seen some quite passionate.
And see, I have
people.
mixed opinions about H2I Canada because a lot of guys went thinking they were going to cause shit. That was their goal, was to cause shit. And they didn't think of the ramifications for all of us that like
The
to
first year,
cause
correct?
shit.
The first year, correct? Yeah.
Like to cause shit, but it's drifting in an empty parking lot versus in the middle of an intersection. Mm-hmm. And that really rubbed me the wrong way because the show out to be, a larger Canadian show that people maybe want to go to and would really focus and like on
The potential for
potential
it to be
was
something
amazing, and people
legitimate.
were going with the intention to ruin it.
I think that's the takeover community.
It is.
Yeah.
I was gonna say me and you went this year. Well, I didn't see you this year, but you guys stayed on the island. We stayed at a friend's cottage off of the island. But it was definitely
It was like martial law.
like it wasn't. I'd say as out of hand as what I saw in the videos.
And that's how the OPP are.
But yeah,
Yeah, it was. There was no messing around whatsoever. I think the funniest thing I saw this year at H2OI is, this was like 9 o'clock on the strip, 9 p.m.
Yeah.
The police had blocked off any car access to the main strip, to and from, all weekend long, right? So we were staying pretty close to the strip. So the strip was pretty crowded with people. Anyways,
Cool.
There's like this little kid just chilling on the roof of Pizza.
Yeah.
He's like 7 years old, just chilling at the top.
That's what we're saying.
That's all I was saying. Okay, so question.
Yes.
More funny stories.
So I'll tell you another funny dealership story from Boyer and Pickering, GM. So I was there for a little bit of this. It's more of a secondhand story, but I was working there at the time. I saw the truck. Mm-hmm. There was a guy that bought a base model Chevrolet Cheyenne, like an 88 or an 86 or something like that. And in that time, Boyer was offering for $2,000 in 1980s money, lifetime rust warranty. So fast forward to 2008. And any Chevrolet Cheyenne that has lived through that many winters shows up in the dealership. And this elderly man got out of his truck and said, "Hello, I'd like to call in my rust warranty on my truck." And everyone's eyes got really big because this thing looked like Swiss cheese. It was like a step above a plow truck. And Mr. Boyer got a phone call. Mr. Michael Boyer came down from Apsley.
Yeah.
Very fast.
Yeah.
And said, "I'll give you a brand new Denali if you do not go through with this. Like, I will give you a $90,000 truck off the lot if you just leave this truck here and wash your hands of it." He
That's
said,
a sweet deal.
"That's a great, any person with a brain would take that."
But not
This
this
man
guy.
loved his truck. He said,
I
"No,
can
thank
understand
you."
that.
Yeah, so can I. Absolutely. That's a car person. That man has probably had his entire life, like, that's the entirety of the 90s with that truck. Good time. And so the work order went through. Who makes parts for Cheyennes? Body parts. Year one.
No idea.
clue.
Year one's like the biggest manufacturer of
never mind. Okay.
aftermarket, like hot rod, like muscle car stuff. Like they do full repressed Camaros.
Okay.
And so, new fenders, new cab, new doors, new bed, frame repairs. The only things that were original were like the axles, the engine, the interior. Because, of course, all the brake lines broke, like this and that. And he paid a little bit extra here and there for the things that were not covered under his warranty. But that truck, by the end of it all, I mean, it wasn't, I called the $100,000 Cheyenne, but I know it wasn't that. But he gave up a $90,000 truck to save that truck. But
man.
it was under the pretense that, like, they ripped up that contract in front of him. You will never bring this truck back. We never want to see this truck again.
That
But the man
had
got a
to have
parade.
been probably close to like 45 to 70,000.
Yeah, for a full restoration to pay a guy to do that, and they had because Boyer's got a body shop on site.
So all the body shop work would be like a fortune.
Oh yeah, and like all the panels lined up, it was its original color, like all this and that, like, the nice interior, original radio in that thing. Beautiful truck. Once it was done, was not a beautiful truck when it showed up, and so I was in shock, shocked that, and I respect this old man. And he's like, yeah, sure, wrap up the contract. I'll be dead by the time it happens again. Like. Got a brand new truck. Got a brand new 1988 Cheyenne out of that. And I was blown away. Absolutely blown away. Because I'd never seen, I've seen old cars come in that we turned away. Toyota that happened, we had a guy who we couldn't courtesy wash his car. He had an 85 Toyota Corona. And you can't get a window seal for a Toyota Corona, so it was all duct tape. And there's a big note on the dashboard that says, do not wash this car. Because it would rain on the inside. But he came for his oil changes at Toyota. That car was always serviced at the dealership. Fantastic. Terrible car. Fantastic.
Terrible car.
But it's just the way you see so many people like that I understand to the core of me. But like I would never be that person. I don't know if I could stand in that room. I mean, rust warranty, I could. I could stand in the middle of a dealership and be like, no, I want you to fix my truck. I want to watch you do it. I'll be here every week. Ooh, that doesn't go there.
That guy's just sitting in the service.
Oh, yeah.
In the service area looking in the window.
Is it done yet?
Yeah.
Can I see it? The steering wheel's not in the right spot.
That poor advisor.
Oh, yeah. That was a team effort on that dealership. Like, I couldn't. Oh my God.
Oh man, don't worry, that's okay. That's just the ghosts. So we had experienced a similar issue at one point in time with a specific dealership not in the area where a good customer of ours had purchased a BMW.
Yeah.
He bought the BMW, was very happy with it. However, he complained that it was leaking a significant amount of oil.
As all BMWs do.
Well, and he said it was making some funny
that.
sounds as well, right?
Yes.
So, we put the car up on the hoist. We check it out. Oil pan, rear main seal, just like they're level 1 to level 3 in terms of leaks. Yeah. It was like level 10, like just coming out like a pee hole. Yeah, full blast. And so we realized that that's obviously an issue for the safety that was written about 12 days ago. At this point, right? Move the wheel side to side, check the front end. A whole front left tie rod was just completely like.
Detached.
Yeah, not the amount of play that it had was not what it should have had, right? Control arms were shot. Like this car was in rough shape.
Yeah.
Right. So whomever had this car did not take care of it. And the customer's like, yeah, no. I bought this thing safety and certified. So, I had to call up the dealership and I said, hey guys, so what happened? Right. Long story short, they sent it to another shop to get certified, and that shop did the rear main seal. And they ended up writing the safety, but when they did the rear main seal, whomever did it wrote BMW sucks balls on the flex plate, and they didn't have the right tools to do the job, so they put a hole in the engine block. So yeah, all right. They gave us the go ahead to fix the car properly for the customer. We split the tranny and we saw all that, and I called the dealership and I'm like, yeah, so I don't know, man.
Your tech.
I'm sorry, bro. Like I don't know what to tell you. So he told me that the person who had the vehicle before must had the rear main seal done, that they didn't do it, that he has no idea where it got done. So then I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, I'm going over it in my mind. I look at the safety. I call the shop that did the safety, and I'm like, so you guys work on this car? And he's like, yeah, we did the rear main seal. And I'm like, sweet, I have some stuff to to send over to you. Give me your email.
Here you go.
So, exactly. I emailed them over the pictures, and I'm like, so here's the safety, here's the work that we see, and you said you did the rear main seal, so I don't know what you guys want to do, but this guy needs his vehicle fixed. Long story short, they paid for this guy's Ubers for like a month, and they put him in a rental and like $15,000 engine. That's a mistake. That's a mistake. Long story short, check your safeties over, check them twice, check them 3 times. Yep. Yeah, no hot safeties at the dealership.
No, that's rough.
Yeah, poor customer though, right?
Yeah, that's unfortunate for that guy because he just got into a car that I wanted to buy a BMW. I bought this BMW.
This is the second BMW that's a mess. Yeah. His second one, so
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, really good guy. Really
time for a Toyota.
You know what? Yeah. As someone who loves BMW to its core. Right, BMWs love to leak oil.
They really do.
Yeah.
There's a reason why Mercedes puts a little diaper on the bottom of all their cars. Because they know it's going to leak. So they just don't want you to see it.
That's very true. That's very true.
Every single, actually the best I've ever saw. So I know it's not a B, but I always put BMW and Mercedes kind of in the same class with each other for their echelon of owners.
Yeah.
But on the other end of the scale, the Canadian military uses Glenda wagons.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've ever been out by the Oshawa airport, but there's a base there.
So quick pause. For those of our listeners that don't know what those are, explain yourself.
The Glenda wagon?
Yeah.
So you've seen them. I know you've seen one on the highway. It looks like a small cinder block driving really fast behind you, but it's the most expensive SUV that Mercedes makes.
Okay.
It's been the same body style since the 70s.
Okay.
It was originally made as a military vehicle, and then civilians went, I want that one. And so Mercedes said, sure. And so they made a bunch of them, and now they're like $200,000, $300,000 monsters that have the aerodynamics of a cow. But they're hyper luxury. You see a lot of them in Toronto. You see them in music videos. But that's the G63.
So little history lesson here.
And that's it. Went from Glenda wagon to G wagon to G230s and G330s to G65s to just GAMGs and we just call them G wagons because no one knows how to say Glenda. Glendenwagen. But the Canadian military only has a contract for two types of vehicles, and that's freaking GMT 800 Silverados. You too. And Glenda wagons.
Silverado.
And so there's all these G wagons sitting up at the base at the Oshawa airport.
Oh, wonderful.
All of the GMT, all the 6-liter V8 Silverados, dry as a bone, not a dot of oil anywhere, the workhorses. Every single Glenda wagon has a little tray underneath of them to catch all of the fluids that leak out of them all the time. And that is a diesel military commercial built to go through the desert vehicle.
Still does its job.
Needs a diaper under the car at all points. Your tax dollars are going to oil.
Oh yeah. It's funny to think sometimes, where and how our tax dollars get spent and on what.
It's both hilarious and frustrating sometimes, but I do enjoy going up there because there's a doctor's office up there that I take my significant other to sometimes, and I stare through the fence and I'm just laughing at these. Like, look at all these G-Wagons, they're all leaking, every single one of them. I really feel comfortable that if someone invaded the G-Wagons on the forefront of our... as they're trying to start them.
Good old German reliability.
Turbo diesel power. However, they are landmine proof, so that's a bonus, I guess.
I don't know, man. I'd rather one of those over an F-150.
I'd rather one of those over a Humvee.
Oh, well.
The Humvees are terrible.
But so are Fords.
The F-150 is not the best.
No.
Nothing made after 2002 seems to hold up anymore.
I agree with that. I agree with that statement. Except for, the 05 to I would say 2009 AMGs.
The AMGs are, because that was still
nice
hand-built
vehicles.
motors.
Yeah.
They were still really, really tough. I mean, there's always exceptions to every rule.
Mm-hmm.
Like any normal person that says, hey, what's a good car for me to buy that I won't have to be a car person to have? Buy any year Toyota Camry. Any year.
Kia Soul.
I mean, I've not seen a lot of them blow up.
No. If it's a 2-liter,
The 2 liters are
the 2
terrible.
liters are horrible.
So you know how OPP Traffic Division posts their recent findings and catches what they find on the 401. Yeah, so they caught a Kia Soul going 180, 190 kilometers
They
an hour.
can go that fast?
That's what I thought. But this thing had a huge far can coming out the back and a rear bumper delete and stickers
fast.
all over the windows. And I'm thinking, well, I ain't ever seen a Kia Soul like that before.
Who walks into the dealership and goes, yep, that's the one. The Kia Soul. I saw those hamsters in that commercial, and they look like they were having a blast.
I know
I want me one of those.
One person that likes those. My grandma likes the Kia Soul. I don't know
you
why.
know what?
I just remember
it's made for someone like that.
we were driving in traffic one time, and she's just like, I really like those. And I was like, no, that's not for me. I'm like,
that's not it.
That's not nice.
It's not the move, Grandma.
Kia tried to bring back the box form, but they didn't do it right.
Kia got into the market where the Scion XB and the Nissan Cube had already failed and was like, this is a great idea. These will sell cars. And it did. So many Kia Souls on the goddamn road.
I think it's quite similar to the PT Cruiser.
I feel like they were giving away. There had to be the way. That had to be. No one, not a single soul walks into the dealership and goes, the PT Cruiser. That was the one I wanted.
Now
It's a station wagon neon.
Station wagon.
It is.
The neon hatch.
With uglier like components to it though.
It was sold side by side for a little while with the Caliber.
You know what's even worse
That's
than those
horrible,
two?
too.
Do you know what's even worse than those two? The Aztec.
The Aztec was unfair. Aztec was unfair because if you saw the concept for the Aztec, it
Yeah.
was proportionate. It was good looking, lots of great ideas. And
What
GM
happened?
went and said, all these ideas are great. Build it on the Rendezvous frame. And Pontiac was like, "Well, okay, maybe. It's like asking a kid to recreate the Mona Lisa with like 6 crayons. It's a face.
In theory, it was wonderful. In practice, it didn't
Communism.
work.
It was really great in theory. In practicality, it was the worst vehicle ever made.
By far, I think one of the worst vehicles ever made.
It had a tent from factory though. Like it was a cool car. Just if you got over the fact that it was a Buick Rendezvous with a body kit.
Buick Rendezvous. Oh man,
You can't deny though. Like when you see one nowadays, though, you don't get excited about it, but like if you see one drive by, it does catch your interest because you don't
it's
see
bright
them, right?
fucking yellow.
Not all of them. Not all of them. Not all of them.
so question to you.
I want me a red one.
So
Nice.
if you had all the money in the world to buy a car that you think is the ugliest absolute car in the world just to troll people with, what would you buy?
The ugliest vehicle in the world. To troll.
Man,
people.
one of those new M3s is pretty ugly. Not
The
gonna
new
lie.
MTs are really bad.
I'm a big fan.
I don't
Thank
like
you
the
very
grills.
much.
Are you actually?
Of course I am.
Really?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I will say, the rear end of those new BMWs, I like. Like it looks really aggressive from the rear. The front, it has not grown on me. That like massive.
It's a
teeth
different
grill,
approach to
whatever it is.
styling. It's not for aesthetics. It's
Yeah.
for this is a brute vehicle, and this vehicle is meant for like it's
No, yeah.
It's like a bulldog. It's not a good looking dog to have, but like you know what I mean.
Yeah,
like
it's,
has
like
that
it's
presence.
built. What it's built for, it does great. Like a fast car.
It's a
fast
different
sports
approach to
car.
aesthetics,
But
in my
just
opinion.
Looks wise, it's definitely up there on the list of new cars that don't look great.
They look good in person.
I've seen them in person. I'm still not a big fan of them.
I love you, BMW. Back to
I
our
can
please,
tell.
please sponsor me, BMW.
Pickering Auto Lab. Yep. Please send us some nice things.
I'm torn because there's so many just god awful design.
There's gotta be
vehicles.
one.
I can see the one in my head that I want. I just don't remember the name of it, so it's irrelevant. It's a Japanese like one-off kind of weird half a supercar thing that looks like it's got a smiley face and 4 eyes. It looks like the alien from Lilo and Stitch, the big boss alien, the Russian one. It's just terrible. It's just god awful. I don't know who designed it. I think they should be shot. Just take out back, shoot them.
Violence isn't the answer.
It's the question. The answer is yes.
Oh man.
Okay, so second to the Japanese creation.
That's so tough. Like there were body kit. You could buy them through Subaru in Japan, the Subaru Sambar and the smaller key vehicles, and they came with this like Luxo design front end, so they look like Austin Minis and weird shit like that. Some of those are just terrible.
Really?
The Prowler, I love the Prowler, but the Prowler's an ugly vehicle. Really high up on the list.
1997 Dodge Grand Caravan.
Oh yeah, the background static of the world. They're always there, just always there, but you just tune them out.
I don't know if it's the owners or if it's the actual vehicle that bothers me more.
It's a bit of both. It's a little bit of both.
Oh man.
I'm trying to there's so many.
I'll say another ugly car like I'd like to own. Just it's kind of like well known by everyone. Fiat Multipla. Like, only because like it is so ugly, but they just got this certain thing that's like
I feel
it
like
looks like a. It's
the
quirky.
Twing-
It's like fun looking in a way,
The
but like
Twingo.
yeah, okay, yeah.
Does Fiat still make vehicles?
Fiat still makes Fiat's one of the biggest car manufacturers in the world.
Unfortunately.
They own Ferrari. You don't.
You look at a Ferrari and then you look at a Fiat 500.
And they're designed by the same people. Fiat 500 for what it was. I will give it that. It was a great, in that time of retro designed cars. Because think about the time the Fiat 500 came out. We had the Thunderbird.
Yep.
We had the GT4, or just the Ford GT, I guess, not GT40.
The
but
minis kinda
the
came back.
Mini.
Beetle.
And that was coming out of the back end of the HHR and the PT Loser. And
The HHR was wonderful.
And that's funny because the HHR and the PT Loose are on the same scale.
Yeah.
But people like the HHR and nobody likes the PT Cruiser. Like the fact that you get a panel HHR SS turbocharged that you could push 1,000 horsepower on the stock internals.
And a 6-speed.
And a 6-speed.
That's impressive.
It's super impressive. And then you look at the PT Cruiser and you're like, even with an SRT swap, I wouldn't own one.
So from a mechanical perspective then, what wouldn't you own?
I wouldn't own a cruise ever. You couldn't pay me to take a cruise. Like, not at all.
Take a cruise for a cruise?
Yeah, not
No.
even, like, I just absolutely not. Probably the newer Ford Fiestas. Nope, I had to work on one a
They're
lot.
time bombs.
They're absolutely time bombs.
Yeah.
That's a good...
CCTA GTI.
Yeah, I wouldn't own... Yeah, I don't find that they're like terrible to own. There's just not things that I would own. Although, the Tiguan, the CCT
that
Tiguan,
too,
the 2-liter turbo Tiguans with the self-machining engines, absolutely not.
Any Audi Volkswagen product with a 2-liter engine?
With a 2-liter turbo.
Yeah.
Anything
no.
with a 2-liter 8-valve? All day.
No, 2-liter turbo. My about 2-liter
Yeah.
turbo. No thanks.
Just no thank you.
Nope.
I don't need to replace engines like oil filters.
Well, it depends what generation of 2-liter turbo. Though.
I
Like,
know.
I was
Not
looking.
quite.
No,
Not
because
quite.
I was looking at
Not
like
quite.
what is this like?
I got a customer saying, I got the 2017. It's the updated engine.
Well, they're
3
better,
months later,
but they're still
hey, man,
bad. Yeah.
Hey man, I'm down a liter of oil. Why don't you just make it a weird sound? Stretch timing chain. Low compression.
Yeah, no, the newer
Yeah.
ones are still got issues, but like, well, they all do have issues. But I mean, like, what, a month ago? Not even 2 weeks ago, I looked at that Fahrenheit GTI, and that one's got like the timing belt 2-liter turbo. So like, I'm not an expert on the 2-liter turbos at all. I have friends that know way more about them, but I know enough to know that the timing belt motor apparently is supposedly supposed to be the best one.
Well, it's
But-
more than likely better.
It is
Yeah,
better because the
better.
components that fail in the other ones it doesn't have. I mean, how far back of bad cars do you want to? I'll never own I love the Land Rover Discovery 2, the second generation. Actually, no, the first generation with the V6 and the V8. I'll never own one. They overheat just when you look at them. They blow motors left, right, and center. Aluminum head V8, and all stuffed in there. Triumph TR7. Never own one. Love them. They look like little wedges of cheese. Terrible car. Absolutely disgustingly terrible car. But like, there's so many of them out. Like modern cars, I don't even think about anymore because they all have recalls and they all have this and that. I can't afford them anyway. But just I don't. If I was going to like middle of the road car, I wouldn't even suggest for someone to own. Like top of the list, like I said, first thing comes to mind is Chevrolet Cruze. Just stay away from it.
Stay away from it. Nothing
Yeah.
but problems.
First and second
Everyone-
generation Mazda 3s.
Every single hold up before you get there.
Crispy.
Every single cruise customer or family member, friend, acquaintance, someone I've met, they have all blown their head gasket.
Yep.
All of them.
And that's the tip of the iceberg for those cars. It seems.
Yeah, there's a lot more to it,
Oh yeah.
but
That
just
and was the Versa Note. I told people get rid of those all the time too.
Oh, the-
CVT transmissions are time bombs on those.
oh man,
There's a class action lawsuit.
yeah, I feel like
There's some good
most
ones not to buy.
CVTs are
Any of
not
those
so
new
good.
V-stands.
Yeah.
Like when Subaru for their automatics, they went to the CVT.
Oh, the PVEVs?
Yeah, I was like, oh no,
Oh no. Head
Why?
gaskets and transmissions.
why? So this begs the question: your dream car, realistic and unrealistic.
Let me hear his first.
Okay, so if we're